or to see how it could be made more, let's say, flexible. Maybe that's for the first time in short.
Thank you for this. I'd like to, Jennifer, to you, and I would like you managing public and private funds. What are the key differences, potential differences between those two from your perspective as a re-granter?
Thank you. Yes, it's difficult, I think, to generalize about the differences between public funds and private funds, because in reality, actually, every donor and every re-granting program is different. So we manage public funds both from EEA grants and also from the European Union, again through 3 CERV programs. And there's quite a lot of differences between those 2 public donors. And we also manage 2 re-granting programs of private donors. And again, there's quite a lot of differences between those private donors. But if I wanted to try and generalize a little bit, I would say that on the whole, private donors are able to be more flexible, and they're able to take more risks, as they're not accountable, obviously, to public taxpayers and public procedures. And we've seen that in both the privately funded re-granting programs that we manage, that there is this willingness to take risks, and that enables us to focus on supporting quite small, newly established organisations that don't necessarily have that track record. And we're also able to agree a higher level of flexibility with the donors, that if the grant isn't implemented quite as planned for whatever region, we have the flexibility to work with a grantee to adapt the programme. And that level of flexibility is obviously a lot more difficult in a public funded programme.
Thank you. Marija and Tina, I want to hear from you, whoever feels more comfortable, your experience between public and private funders and donors. Marija, you're first by the alphabet, so please.
Okay, since Veronika started to speak about European funds, my brain was going, how to say hate, but appropriately for this space where I'm talking now. I really I'm not fond of European money when we speak about funding NGOs. We use it, of course. We have it. We apply to grants. We are searching over the portal. So we are like, we accepted that we need it to function and to operate because for us it's in Croatia. It's quite impossible to function without it at the moment. Hopefully this will change. So my dream is to one day work in an NGO, in a feminist NGO, where we don't need European money. But until then, we have different experiences in re-granting same programs. For example, we have like funds from CERV, but from Croatian organization, from one that is based, I'm not sure, but I think in Belgium, yeah, and Helsinki Committee. So it's like 3 different funds from the same EU program. And I would say that I couldn't even imagine how many differences can there be. So this is something that we realized when we applied to the 3rd one. We said, okay, the first one was like this, the second one was like this, but then the 3rd one was completely different from both of them. And so it's raising quite a lot of questions among us, why there are so many differences within the same program, actually. So this is one thing. I'm not sure if there are some other rules, maybe for different organizations, re-granting organizations, funders, or they're trying to work with us in different ways. We had quite a few private funders also, from the small feminist funds to the big ones. And the difference is that as much as I want to be funded only by the private funders, the thing is when director changes or board of director changes. They change like topics, they change how they fund, and this is something that is quite unsecure for us. So for 3 years we have a grant, and then they say, okay, so now we are shifting the topics, no more feminism, now everything goes to environment, and we're like, okay, so what's happening now? So this is something that is an issue. But with European and other public funds, it's, of course, as we all know, bureaucracy, structure, checking all the European Union boxes, and working. Actually, our work needs to go in some boundaries where we can see that it doesn't have impact that it should have. So I would say those kinds of funds really, they're like just, our impact is getting is getting lesser, because we don't have like, we cannot react in emergent situations, because you have like 27 papers to fill in, and then 2 of them are coming back to you because, oh, you checked the wrong box. And this is also an issue. Maybe it would be good to have in this conversation also someone from an NGO that is not as feminist as we are, because we are doing topics as abortion and reproductive rights, and this is something that is also a burden, because then they see, okay, these women are speaking loudly about abortion, no money for them. They're disgrace, they're risk, and the money is not going towards those kinds of organizations. So we are really in between everything at the moment, but not at the moment, but continuously. And actually, to have an impact, to change the world, to change our community, we depend on feminist funders. But we are trying to make our scope of work a bit bigger so that we can cover other bases and slowly enter topics that can also change things, but slowly. And we are in the balance all the time, and it gets quite frustrating.
Thank you. I hear you, Maria. I think we are welcome to the administrative burden, and Vera mentioned it as well, that we're having basically the same issue from both sides. Tina,
Yeah,
your view on the differences.
my view is that public funding is actually designed to work best for the bureaucrats and to keep their backs covered in case of audits. It seems that the main goal often is to spend the money according to the strict rules, regardless of what we actually achieve, what impact we actually have. So, but the rules are, of course, written without consulting the organizations that actually apply for funding. So no one, I think, is genuinely dealing with the question whether the whole frame is being practical for those that will be actually implementing those projects and programs. Like Maria said, circumstances can sometimes change daily in the field, but projects must be executed exactly the way they were planned, with little to no flexibility for adjustments along the way. And I'm sure that we all have some weird experiences, but I'd like to share one example with you to show how absurd this can get. We all know that the rules state that all expenses must be justified based on the real needs, etc., which is fine. And then we had an organization who was running a program for children, and at the end of one of the activities, they took the children for ice cream. That was a planned expense, not exactly the ice cream, but some food, which was fine. But then the attendance list, which you have to report, showed 10 children. But the receipt for the ice cream was 11 scoops. And the founder actually questioned this 11th scoop. It found it illogical and actually refused that part of the expense because it doesn't match. Like I said, it's very absurd. We were all probably looking for a missing 1 cent, which got lost in Excel because of the rounding, the 2-digit numbers, etc. We have all these stories, I guess. but I think it's really not in alignment with what you actually do in the field. For example, also quantity over quality. The public funding is really all over this quantity. I think most of the times the applicants the applicant who promises to work with, I don't know, 1,000 people to run 40 events in a year, they probably have a better chance of getting funded than someone who's working intensively with 50 people, which can actually create some change in their everyday life, which you cannot achieve with 1,000 people for sure. Then you have the strict budget categories. Sometimes public funds limit the costs of the stuff, like to, I don't know, 40% of the total project budget, even though the project is maybe about tutoring children, which is of course human resources, and that's the core expense. Why are you limiting this? I think that not so much effort is done to check whether the system is friendly enough to enable smaller organizations to apply. Or do we encourage brave ideas with public funding? Sometimes I'm not sure. Meanwhile, private funding works differently. It's focused on the impact, on what kind of change the funding can create in society. So the whole application processes are usually simpler, the funding decisions are made faster, there's flexibility to adapt if circumstances change. And at the end of the day, the private funders actually care about whether the results have been achieved or not. But, and there's always but, this brings in another issue. You have to innovate all the time. So these calls usually look for innovative ideas, new approaches, bold ideas. And then you ask yourself, but what about these boring regular activities that we have to do every day that are proven to be something that you have to do every day, like school, for example. You don't go to school and ask a teacher to innovate every year with the curriculum, where their job is to teach children. And the same thing is with my organization. We are service provision for vulnerable groups. We cannot innovate every year. We need the program to be consistent, because only this way, users of the program get some I lost the word, continuiteta.
Continuity. Yeah.
Continuity, yeah. And you need to do it this exact way. It's proven. It's okay. While private funds will go, yeah, but this is the regular thing. What new do you have? So this is this catch again with the private funds. So there's pluses and minuses from our perspective.
Thank you. You pointed out something in the beginning, is that the let's call it administrative framework isn't working for the impact of our organizations. So I kind of think that we all agree that on that part we're all on the same side. And basically, it might be useful to have here someone from the donor side, either from the European Commission or other public donors. Vera, I see you. So I think there is space to some common advocacy towards donors. On the one side, re-granting organizations and other grantees as well. So that's something to work on in the future. Although we've seen changes that are going to the better. For example, lump sum grants are something quite new in the European funding. The ACF from the EA grants is more and more introducing those more flexible options as well. So I personally see those big institutional public donors as like big ships that you need a lot of time and strength to move them a little bit. On the other side, private donors can do it much faster and have more possibilities to be flexible. Vera, please.
Yeah, thanks. I think we are moving into the second topic of discussion, the administrative burden. And the first part of what I wanted to say was exactly what you just now said, Ivan, on EU and other public donors moving towards more simplification in terms of administrative burdens. Sorry. However, in all grant programs, we say that, let's say, in terms of financial reporting, we don't demand more than the Hungarian accounting and taxation regulations demand. And very often, or well, not very often, but regularly, we do see that it gives organizations a lot of trouble to meet these regulatory demands. And actually, sometimes what is seems as administrative harassment is for the benefit of the grantees in terms of helping them, let's say, put their house in order, their accounting in order, and their taxation is in order. And my view is that it's better for the grantees if we do that than if the tax authority does it. So the problem is here, and you wanted to ask me about what's the balance between flexibility and administrative burden. And that's where I kind of see the limits of flexibility, that you have to meet the regularity obligations that are there, which are unfortunately in our countries tend to be complicated and involve a lot of bureaucracy, but that's the environment we're living in, as particularly in countries where shrinking civic space, where civil society organizations are attacked and harassed by official agencies. It is especially important for them to have their house in order. And yeah, what I said before, it's better if a re-granting organization like ourselves does it than the official authorities.
Thank you for jumping in on this. So I would jump to talk about that the autonomy of accountability and flexibility. We have to be accountable for the money that we're getting, for the work that we do, accountable and transparent as well. But on the other hand, more flexibility, less administrative, the more you can concentrate on the actual work you're doing. So I will ask Marija. I'll jump a bit through the questions. In your experience and what you've seen through different grants you've got, what stuck out as a positive example on actually proving accountability, and that it wasn't too much of an administrative burden, but you still have been held accountable for your work and the money, of course.
So there is a quite big difference, as we all know, between private funders and public money. I agree with Veronika, but I also have some things that I don't agree with, of course. In Croatia, so this is why I'm not sure if I actually do not agree, because in Croatia, the law is quite vaguely written. We don't have like a category for the civil sector, and then we are some kind of businesses, and then we are not, and everything is overlap at the times. And actually, it's at the end, I know for sure that quite a few organizations are doing things differently, and we are all sure that we are everything doing by the law. And there is no way that all those things are by the law if we are doing them in such a different ways. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that there are ways to fund even not registered initiatives. So they don't even have accountant, and they don't have account, and they can get funds. So there are ways to go beyond all those demands for some funders. Of course, not European Union, I would say. For example, we had a CERV from IPPF. They were re-granting it. And the application process was quite easy. We had only a few boxes to check and to write quite vaguely about the project. And we had like quite a few, just like I think 3 or 4 outcomes maybe. At the end, we had them like 10, and they knew that we will have 10 of them because we spoke with them about that. But we put in the project 3 or 4. This was the necessity for them to cover in front of European Commission. Then the reporting part was done for the CERV. I think it was amount around 40,000 euros. The financial report took us half to 1 day, working day, from the scratch. We had all the receipts and everything of course, in the folders, but to fulfill everything, it took us like 3 to 4 hours, and then just to check it, because they actually were not, they didn't have any structure. They had a report, which was like a table, and you just had to list everything inside of it, and that was it. That was something that was expected from us. We had left some funds. I think it was around 3,000 to 4,000 euros. I'm not sure. Maybe it was less, but it was less than 10% of the project. They called us. We of course reported that. We didn't try to put some receipts and then to make it look like it was spent. We didn't do that. We just said, this is what's left. We are sorry, but everything was quite chaotic for us because it was a short-term thing. And they called us and they said, okay, now we are going to work together how to redistribute those funds within the project. And we noticed that we can raise the amount of the percentage in salaries, not to go over the 7% that was condition. So we need to stay within changes in 7% in the salary part. And they helped us to do this. So everything was done with them. And we've sent it and everything was okay. So they really tried to move the burden from us. And they were involved in creating things. You know what were the outcomes of this project? It was the feminist primer that is now used on the college as a literature for the students. It's the activist drumming section in Rijeka with, I think, 10 drums bought for them. It was also, it was the thing with publication, queer and Catholics, and the presentation in Zagreb and Rijeka. So we had outcomes within this project more than in most of the other projects. And at the last moment, a month before the end of the project, we called and we said, we have a brilliant idea. We can do a series of 4 radio shows about the things that we've done in projects, but we need to redistribute funds accordingly. And they said, okay, how will you do this? Please respect this, this, and this. If you don't respect this, this, and this, it's not going to happen. But it was a month before the deadline. And they said, okay, it was the CERV. So really, really like honest communication, trust that we will not fuck up a big thing was crucial for this project. Everybody thrived, everybody included. So this is the example of, for me, greatest experience of re-granting European money.
Okay, thank you. Nice to hear this. Marija, just watch your language, please. Jennifer, can you relate on this? And I'll just give an add-on this question on how can re-granters support organization in these administrative tasks. Marija actually talked about this. Is it just about communication, or can we do something else?
Thank you. Yeah, I was listening with great interest, and it's a great story that Marija said. And I think a lot of our experience resonates with that, because I think communication is a really important part of getting this balance right between kind of flexibility and accountability. And that's what we try to do as well. It's really about grantor and the grantee kind of seeing themselves on the same side and working together to achieve the best impact, kind of finding ways to overcome kind of problems and unforeseen circumstances, which every project's always going to have something that's unforeseen. And working, so finding a way to solve those problems in a way that's within the rules of the programme. And some programmes are going to have more strict rules, sometimes they're going to have more flexible rules. But that very open communication, we always have named programme officers, so grantees know that they can always pick up the phone and speak to someone who knows their project. That's a really important part of our work. And I think that is something that a re-granting organisation can help with, because obviously it's not always possible for the very big funders like the European Commission to be able to have that level of kind of everyday communication with all their grantees, whereas we are a lot closer to our grantees. We speak the same language, which is also an important part of it. And so we really work quite closely together, and that almost always brings really positive results. And it's a very enjoyable part of our work as well, because it brings us closer as well to the people who are on the ground doing the fantastic work.
Thank you. Tina, do you have any? Vera? Yeah, sorry, then I'll get back to Tina, please.
Sorry, just a few things to add to what Jennifer said. I can very much identify with what you said, and we are using the same methods, and our evaluation of earlier programs showed that, let's say, the human face of the re-grantor is the most appreciated aspect. But I would like to highlight, someone mentioned the word trust, and I think it's key. So this communication has to be two ways. So the grantee should also proactively communicate towards the grant maker. And we also always try to encourage grantees to talk to us, to talk to their designated contact persons, and to be honest about problems and issues, because we can only work with them to solve the problems if we know about those problems. And if they keep quiet and they are afraid to communicate openly, then it can lead to much bigger problems at a later stage when changes can't be done anymore because there is no time to do them. So the communication, as I said, must be both ways, and that's the way to build this trust. Because trust is something you have to be built, and even if we love all the NGOs, we know that many of them simply don't have the capacity or don't have the experience, and they don't have no ill will. They just maybe make mistakes because they don't have the experience or the knowledge how to do that. So the trust needs to be built through this open communication, and it also takes time. And maybe one more thing to add is that every project has a designated person, and that person is somebody with quite strong competencies within the grant-making organization. So it's not like that there is a question and then the answer must go through 5 different levels of authorization before it comes back. So it's we, as a grant-making organization, we are rather small and we have a flat structure, so questions can be answered very quickly. I think that's also part of the story. Thank you, and sorry for coming in.
No, please do. It's fine. Now, your points on this? Any innovative approaches you've seen as well? I think we all agree it's. I mean, as in any relationship, it's about communication. So in this one as well.
Yeah, maybe the crucial thing I think is. Now I'm speaking from the perspective of a regional resource center and also as a re-grantor, that the way we see things, it's not always the same. So when the re-grantor says you have to reach these results, the grantee hears, yeah, it's something in the contract, okay, we'll do whatever. And they don't really, this was my experience, they don't really believe that this is actually what they have to achieve. It's something that we promised, yes, but no one, because of the public funding, where you have to keep with the activities and not results, that gives them the impression that you can just do things in abundance and it will be fine. But actually the donor wants to see the result. And I was a contract manager to a grantee who in the middle of the project said, oh, when I said, how are you with the results? I mean, are you approaching the end or do you have troubles with it? And he said, oh, you mean I actually have to reach those results? And I said, yes, because it's in the contract and because we agreed to give you money under this condition to reach to the results. So they have to turn all the story upside down because the activities they were doing actually didn't lead to the results. And they were afraid to ask me what to do. And this is what Veronika was talking about, and Jennifer, it's all about the trust. So if you call me and you say, you know, I have troubles with this, then I can say yes, and I said that many times, yes, you do something about it. So if it doesn't go this way, what can you change? And they said, oh, we can change things? Yes, you can. So don't do things that don't lead to results. You promised to have I don't know, 10 workshops in order to achieve you know, something. And now you are at the workshop 5 and you still see no results. So quit doing this. Think of something else. And this is the perspective they are not used to because of the public funding, where you have to stick to these scoops of ice cream. They need to match. Nothing must look like it's in disorder. So I think that's the crucial issue with the relation to of grantee towards the regranter.
Thank you. Slađana has a question from the
Yes,
chat.
we have a question.
I'll just say, Tina, we didn't have the problem with ice cream in Croatia. I remember one case like 15 years ago. It was croissants.
Even sweeter.
Yes,
Slađana,
we have a
please.
question from Mirjana, expanding this level of accountability. Could you please address the issue of proportionality between funding level and reporting requirements? At times, public funders grant little money, say 2,000 euros, but the reporting is substantial, as though the NGO got 20,000 euros. So the accountability for small amount of money and really large amounts of money. Even Marija said that they experienced it with 300 euros. So maybe to address this or expand this a little bit.
Jennifer, please.
I just wanted to kind of come back to the point you made briefly before, Ivan, about this, where I think we've all seen and experienced programs that have been quite bureaucratic, especially for small granting amounts. And that's hard work for everybody involved, and of course, especially for the grantees. But we're also aware that there's some steps in the right direction. And I think there has been a degree of organised advocacy between both regranting organisations and grantees towards funders. Already the European Union is kind of bringing in more simplified cost options for smaller grant amounts. And we're beginning to see this now in the EEA grants programmes, and the new civil society programmes make it compulsory actually for small grants to use a simplified reporting approach. So I think gradually we're going to see improvements in that. And as I mentioned earlier, in any case with private donors, they tend to be more flexible and more responsive. So hopefully we're gradually seeing an improvement in that respect.
Thank you. Yeah, we're seeing, and I kind of think it's getting better. Now let's get off from this administrative burden. I know it's a big frustration for everyone, and we could put out on the table a number of different examples that just don't make sense. But I think it's about, in the end, it comes to communication, and then problems can be quite easily solved. When it comes to the relationship between re-granters, funders, and grantees, partners, CSOs, it's not just about money. It's primarily about funding, of course, because without funds we cannot work professionally. But there is support beyond money. So I would ask Vera, your experiences of just going out of the box of funding and money. What have you seen? What have you been able to provide, and what you think did an impact on grantees and their work?
Thank you, Ivan. Before going into this, let me just briefly reflect on what Tina said, and that it brings us back to the administrative burden issue, because with the simplified cost options, which are great, there should be even more emphasis on the impact that the grants are achieving. So what kind of change you as an organization through your work can achieve? And we're trying to push in that direction as a re-granter, and we find it very hard to ask people and organizations to think in terms of not what we want to do, but what we want to achieve. And I think that's a word of caution to everybody, that try thinking in terms of what you want to achieve. Who do you want to change? What do you want to change? Why do you want to change? And then think about what you need to do in that respect. So what we're seeing is very often organizations are asking us, can we apply with this and this and the activity? And then we always say that what is the result of the activity that you want to do, and how does it link the priorities of the calls for proposals? So I think in order to get rid of the administrative burden, we need to think more in terms of impact and achievement. And actually that brings to the non-financial support, because that could be one task for the re-granter to train and to help civil society organizations to think about in terms of impact and achievements. But besides that, one of the most important non-financial support is what Jennifer talked about before, that the re-granter is there in person to help, to discuss problems, to brainstorm about solutions. So if you want to use a fancy word, to mentor the grantees, because that's basically mentoring what we do. And that's a continuous work, and honestly quite capacity intensive on the side of the re-granter. So I also wanted to add that unfortunately, in most re-granting programs, there is a limit how much the re-granter can use to manage the program. So our capacities are also limited. We would like to do more of this mentoring, but that's really time intensive. Another thing that we found really useful is to have network building and cooperation and communication among the grantees, among the civil society organizations. We found it quite sometimes that in order to create cooperations locally in the same city, often the local organization needs some kind of facilitation from the outside. So we've seen that we, as the re-granter or the grant maker, convened civil society organizations, grantees from the same town that we supported, and it turned out that they had nothing to do beforehand with one another, and they realized right there on the spot how they could cooperate and what are the common points. So I think this network building and partnership generation is another very important element. And then, of course, you can organize trainings on always needed topics like fundraising and communication, etc., etc. But that's more in a general direction. So, because I think this mentoring and network and partnership building are the ones that I see as most valuable by a grant maker.
Thank you, Maria. I see you, but I would like to first ask Tina. When we were preparing for this debate, some of lessons learned from your side and providing holistic support to grantees.
Yeah, much of that Veronika already covered, but I would add the holistic support. Well, we at the ACF, we had a system of visiting the organizations. I don't know about the other funds, how you create this, but you actually, now I will overlap with the administrative burden and with this holistic support. So what we came up with is 3 visits per organization. We didn't have that many organizations. It was doable. I think with the bigger funds, you cannot visit, I don't know, 1,000 grantees, but with our, I don't know, 60 or so, it was doable. So we actually visited each grantee for 3 times. First time when the contract was signed, and before they started working on their project, I as a grant manager, I went there and discussed with them about the results. Like Vera said, yes, it's very important for them to understand what they need to achieve. And although we had this an hour or 2 conversation about the results, at the end you still realize they didn't grasp the whole thing. So the first visit was aimed at their understanding the whole process. So you explained everything, how this whole year will look like, what will we expect, what they have to do, etc. The second visit was before first reporting, to make sure that they really understood things and they know what to hand in with the report, because we didn't demand the whole documentation. We concentrated on results, of course, and we wanted to see the proofs of results, not the activities. And again, they were giving us a lot of these papers, the lists of participants, photos and everything, how the procedure went. And it was really, really hard for them to understand that I'm not interested in the procedure. I'm interested in the final impact. And the third, and to make sure that they have all the papers, that was already said. So how they actually do their own accountancy, is that in compliance with all the rules, national and the donors, etc. And you helped them actually create the report. So you were there with their papers and you helped them to pile this in the right piles and how to report this. And the third visit was before the last reporting, and this was to check how the results are. So are we near? Will they be achieved or not? If not, what can we do to make it happen? And if we realize that they won't be able to achieve them, we really discussed this, how to adapt, what's good enough for us, and etc. And I found this support very useful, not only for me as someone who has to have this oversight of the grantees procedure, but also for the grantees, because they often said to me, my goodness, we didn't realize we can talk like this to a donor. We never had this relationship before. We now can ask whatever. We are not afraid that you will say, oh, you didn't do this workshop. Now you encourage us to leave it aside if it's not working. And it's a whole new world for us. So this has been said at the beginning by, I don't know, Jennifer or Vera. Yeah, they miss this communication and the feeling that there is some person on the other side. It's not just some fund and someone with money, but it's someone who understands their struggles in the field. So we adapted activities, no problem, as long as we reach the result. We also, I don't know, we made this cost sampling, so they didn't hand in the whole documentation. We just sampled, I don't know, 50% or 60%, depends on how your experience with the organization was, and they only handed over those papers, and they didn't have this much burden, etc. So this holistic support, I think it was very valuable for them, because they started to realize that we actually care about what will come out, not what they will do. So we are not digging a hole and then realizing we don't need a hole at all and it's in the wrong place, but we've been good citizens, we've been good grantees, we've been working 8 hours per day digging this hole which no one needs. I think that they at the end realized that what we want, but you know, it's so rare in their realm that I think they will forget by the next financing, because they will fall into public funding again, and the story there is different.
Thank you. Marija, you've been through, I know, different kinds of capacity building programs, not just on the administrative part of your work, but the how to say, everything around it. What in your experience and for your organization, and I know everybody talked with other organizations as well. So what have you seen that really works for you and is really useful for you?
Yeah. Firstly, I would say that I forgot to mention something short, but donors can change. People can change, and this is something that is wonderful. We had ACF in Croatia. It was a horror story for my organization, I will be honest. But later on, we had the same grant manager organization in CERV, and the communication is much better. It's much nicer. It's much easier. And we are thrilled by that. Firstly, we were so like, okay, is this really happening? Now we accepted it, and it's really enjoyable. So I would say that this is something that is important also for both of sides. Listen each other, not just speak, and stop being donors, be allies. If you are allies, trust will be built and communication will be honest. If you are donors, then this is something that will not happen. Talk with the organizations about the goals that you have together. So we all want the burden be taken off from everyone. And if we want to advocate changes, we need to do it together. This is also a part of capacity building, even if you ask me. So if we talk about advocating changes in funding, this is capacity building for us, but also for the donor organization. As I mentioned in my email to 4 of you, a list of things that are offered is, from my opinion, this is not a capacity building. Capacity building is what Tina was speaking about, reaching to us and seeing if we need assistance, if we understood everything well, and if we're not, then going through things with us. Generally, educations for diverse NGOs with diverse kind of knowledge and level of knowledge is something that I will never consider as a capacity building for organization or for myself. This is something that is quite time consuming, and potentially it will not have the outcomes that we all want. Mentoring, of course, if there is capacity for that, or if there is a financial capacity for outside mentors, this is something tailor-made. Mentorship is something that is for us a good capacity building example, but also the importance of movement building, as Veronika said. connecting the organizations, but we need unstructured time. And this is something that needs to be understood. Because if you structure our time, and if you give us the topics, and if you give us the lectures, partnerships are not happening. So within 2 programs that we were part of as grantees in last like 2 or 3 years, we came up with really new strong bonds with local and national organizations. You know when? On breaks. On breaks. We were catching time on breaks to communicate, to see what we will do, and to realize the importance of us working together. When I have a structured 8 or to 10-hour workshop, on breaks, I'm on my own. Go away from me. I don't want to see you. I don't want to look at you because like we were together in the same room for 10 hours, go away from me. It's not just me, it's for all of us. It's like that, and we are all aware of it. So unstructured time, if you have enough money to put us in some kind of, I don't know, hotel and make us all listen to some lectures for 1, 2, 3, 4 days, doesn't matter how much, please invest that money in unstructured time. Just put us in the same space and things will happen. This is part of the trust that I'm speaking about all the time. So give us time and space to talk, to see, to plan, and then of course to apply somewhere, because if we don't have time, then we have to do our work and we have to listen to something and be part of workshop. And this movement building is not happening in a structured way. So this kind of capacity building, I think, is much needed, but this is my perspective from a feminist organization and from that part of movement building. We want to talk. So I think this is the main point that I wanted to take on this topic.
Thank you. This is really, and I'm really grateful for your honesty to see what did work for you and what didn't. You struck me with the word with the phrase movement building, and I have a question first for Jennifer, then one for Vera. Is Jennifer, how can we as re-granters facilitate those collaborations, except of putting them in one place and let them be and things will happen, which I quite agree. But what can we do
I
else
also agree,
to
yeah.
support this?
And I think it was nice. I enjoyed Maria's comments, because I think we've all been in that kind of training that we didn't really need and we didn't really want to be there. And there's nothing worse when people are busy and they've got so much work to do to be kind of obliged to conduct these activities that they know are not going to be useful. And that's why we at Bodossaki Foundation, we've realized that for capacity building to be successful, we have to offer a really flexible menu of different approaches to capacity building. That's not compulsory, but some organizations are crying out for the training, and that's great, but some want the tailored coaching, or we offer executive coaching, team mentoring, one-to-one consultancy, and a range of networking activities, which I think are designed to be flexible enough that they do kind of create these opportunities for people to get together and have, brainstorm and do movement building. And to give an example of an activity that we did that's a little bit more specific within the scope of the Active Citizens Fund, in Greece, there's not very many kind of active collaborations and partnerships between the civil society and media outlets and media organizations. And so we identified this, and we organised a workshop where we brought together civil society representatives and journalists and other representatives of different media organisations. And we did allow them that time. There was a kind of an introductory round and some presentations and things, but then it was basically having people in a room over lunch and encouraging people to kind of get together and talk. It was a bit like a matchmaking activity. And actually quite a lot of new partnerships did emerge from that. And as a result, we saw the kind of awareness raising activities and communication activities of projects within the Active Citizens Fund be really scaled up and amplified by the partnerships with the media organisations. So I think it can be done, and I really agree that the movement building and the encouraging collaborations is a way for us to really increase the impact of the work we're doing. And another thing we've done just quite recently as Bodossaki Foundation, we try to see ourselves as a facilitator of bringing different sectors and different groups together. And so we've facilitated just recently an advocacy initiative to improve, kind of strengthen the environment for civil society in Greece. And that involved bringing together civil society, think tanks, academics, and policymakers as well. And we're beginning to see some kind of quite positive signs that's going to have some positive results.
Thanks a lot. And maybe somewhat political question to Vera. Just briefly, I mean, we've seen where the path countries around us are going in politically in Europe. Now we see what's going on in the States. And I mean, you've been there for quite some time already. You've been attacked personally. Ökotárs Foundation has been attacked and is being attacked for quite a number of years already. What can we learn from you? How can first re-granters and let's say donors protect ourselves, but also how can we protect the grantees as well from attacks from political actors?
Yes, thanks. Again, let me refer back a bit to what was said just before on the capacity building, and particularly what Marija said about convening organizations for unstructured time, which I think I agree that it's very beneficial, and I agree that it often turns to bring very positive results. However, what we are struggling with is very often when we try to do something like that, then the feedback is that, oh, we don't have time for that. So I think it's a kind of catch-22 that everybody wishes for spending quality time with your allies and your partners and create new partnerships. But when it really comes to that okay, let's come together on the 10th of February. Sorry, I can't make it. So I don't know how to deal with that actually. But anyway, so coming back to your question, Ivan, on working under pressure and what can re-granters do that are working under pressure. Yes, we have exactly 10 years experience. We started with a conflict around the EA and Norway grants. And I think the most important thing that the re-granter can do and should do is to show courage. To show courage to the grantees, not to falter, not to become insecure, continue the work as normal, let's say, continue supporting your grantees, and not to back down. In our case, what was very important in the first wave of attacks is that the donors, the EA grants at that time, were really behind us. They trusted us as well. So for the eventual donor, it's also very important that the donor's trust in the re-granting organization doesn't falter and is kept up. And the donors keep on supporting the program. And thus, in turn, we could keep on supporting our grantees. So showing courage is, I think, the first and the most important thing we can do. And then there is, of course, if the re-granter has the capacity, is advice in legal terms, advice for the grantees on what they can do in the situation. Also, the communication from the re-granting organization, a strong communication showing that what we do is for the public good, is for, let's say in our case, for the Hungarian society. And the third is a convening role. However, I think, and in our case in Hungary, we didn't quite lead the convening role. It was rather more the big grantees that led the coalition building. And yeah, in this respect, I think the coalition building of organizations that we work together with is very important, as it is shown in the case of Hungary in the civilization coalition of, let's say, self-defense of civil society. So I don't know, I could maybe elaborate more, but I will stop here. Thanks.
You can get back to this. If anyone has questions, just jump in. It's not a problem. Whenever you feel to, so we'll let you know. Don't worry about it. But I would like to take now and get with this towards the end of our talk. Vera talked about when it comes politically difficult, and we're getting into crisis. I mean, we are in a poly-crisis situation for some time now, but we've seen what's happening with funding towards civil society. We've seen the stop work order of the USAID, which is a huge disruption for NGOs around the world. We've seen that the Swiss development aid is also fading out from a couple of countries. The Netherlands also are cutting the funding for civil society. Germany as well, for a couple of billion euros in the next couple of years. Jennifer, your point of view, can we as re-granters and donors as well, can we anyhow react on this? What can we do to support these organizations? So let's talk maybe a bit more about when it comes to public funding. I know private funders are having meetings now and trying to see how they can step in. But is there any possibility for some kind of timely reaction from public donors? What's your opinion on this?
I would say I'm cautiously optimistic, having recent experiences of various other crises, as you mentioned. Everybody's familiar with crisis context, unfortunately, now. We've recently come through the pandemic, and the experience we had there through the EA grants was actually the public donors of the program were very responsive, and lots of flexibility was introduced. And also from the part of the civil society, I think it was Tina that mentioned earlier, it's always amazing how the sector does manage to adapt and keep on going under different circumstances. So taking both the kind of the flexibility and the adaptability and the resilience of the civil society sector and the recent experience we've had with donors, I would certainly hope that we will see some flexibility. I think we as, whether as civil society organisations or grant-making organisations or re-granters, we can all play our role in this, and we've already sent out a survey to some of our grantees to try and understand if they have any impact from the developments in the United States, and we're going to be trying to help do what we can to collect data on the ground to understand how the sector's being affected, and we'll certainly relay that to donors. And the other thing I wanted to say on this kind of experience through the pandemic is that I think there is an increasing collaboration and sharing of information between different donors. So I know that the European Commission are working more closely with EEA grants, for example. There's increased collaboration in terms of working on these collective funding programs through the network of European foundations, to the Alliance for Gender Equality in Civitatis that we participate in are two examples, and also through membership organisations like Philair. Different donors do come together. So I think there's this increased trend for more collaboration. So I'm hoping that, as you know, I'm sure this isn't going to be the last crisis. Obviously, we're going to face also the sector. The world's quite volatile, and I think the collaboration between different donors, but also collaboration between civil society and grant makers in trying to adapt to this environment is going to be helpful.
Thank you. Vera, please.
Thanks. Just to add on that, and I think that's, I would say that's a call to all civil society organizations. The negotiations for the next 7-year budget, the so-called multi-annual financial framework of the EU, are coming up or has started already. And for this reason, the next 2 years will be a crucial time for saving or keeping and improving civil society funding by the EU. Direct civil society funding, such as the CERV program and other similar programs. And I'm saying it because we see that in the European Parliament, from the right of the European Parliament, but also from EPP representatives, these funding provided by the Commission directly to NGOs is coming under attack. And we have to be aware of that and need to deal with that. And European civil society networks and organizations are engaged and are working on this, but they also need the support and the joint efforts, the joint advocacy, in order to have meaningful civil society support in the next EU funding period. So that's just something I call all of you to follow.
Thanks a lot. Jennifer mentioned the flexibility that we've seen during COVID. I quite often think that we learn a lot of, not just in terms of our all of our professionals' work, but generally COVID, but somehow the knowledge is kind of evaporated through time. So maybe Marija and Tina, have you seen during COVID how have donors reacted and grant maker organizations reacted that supported the changes that you had to go through, and which, like Jennifer said, civil society organizations managed to adapt really quickly. In your experience, what do you think the donors did back then that they could do again if in the EU, for example, the whole CERV program gets crushed or substantially lowered financial wise?
Tina, will you be the first this time?
Sure.
No, you go ahead.
Well, please don't be like the Croatian state in COVID. This is first thing. They announced the emergent COVID thing when everything started. I think the results and start of the project was like in 2 years later, something like that. So don't do that. But if Croatia is in something that I see as a limbo, because we are perceived as a part of European Union and that things are getting better here. I think everyone here from Croatia on this Zoom, they know that this is not something that is happening. NGOs are under direct threat all the time, human rights NGOs, but nobody sees that. And donors, big private donors, left the region, left the Croatia, and are leaving Croatia because we are perceived as a European Union state, and we are a European Union state, but actually I don't see that those changes that are necessary are happening here. So let's see what we can do, how we can advocate together to bring them back, to bring the private donors back. Let's see what and how we can advocate towards European Union, and while doing that, try and get funds from whenever you can to distribute among the NGOs and try to adapt on their needs. Maybe they just need operational money, and let's see where can you find that money. And if you need a needs assessment, please let us know that you need it and what is it for, and we will happily we will happily be part of that. So let's see what we can work together. And this is something that we all talked about earlier. Veronika, Tina, Jennifer, they all mentioned the straightforward communication, honest communication. This is how the trust is built. This is how the movement is built. Because the movement is not just the 3 local NGOs working together. All of us together are movement. And this is something I think it's really important to understand. It's not us and you, it's all of us together as a movement to see how the things can get better. Of course, there are always donor organizations and grantees, but this is not important for those kind of changes. And this is something that we all need to learn, and need to learn how to cooperate on really important topics. The thing that is happening now with the funds is really important for everyone. All of us is impacted by that, and maybe this is the chance to sit at the same table and to see what can be done, how things can be advocated, and what is our goal together. So realizing that movement is not built just within NGOs, but within all of us I think is a first step to realize, and then to see on what ways can we cooperate. I think this is something that is most important.
Amen, Marija. You took my final words. This was really beautiful. Tina.
Just to add something, when you ask what the donors can do in order to help during the things like COVID crisis, etc., I think it's very important that we understand each other. So, for example, this adaptiveness is very crucial. For example, we extended the length of the projects because some of the activities couldn't be done during the lockdowns, etc. And another thing which was a part of our program, and I think Jennifer, no, that was in our emails, she mentioned institutional grants, organizational grants. This was a thing, this is support given to the organizations for no content, just for the organization, to rearrange it within the organization the way they feel like and the way they can pursue their mission. So you don't ask them how they spend the money. Of course, they have to have yearly revenue of some decent amount to believe that they will spend the funds wisely, and they have to prove with the application that they actually are something in their field, that they have done projects before, that they have some strategic plan for the future. And then they got this 90,000 euro for 3 years, and they could do whatever with this money. So this is an adaptation to any kind of crisis. You have this money, you can do whatever. It brings you through this crisis and also to pursue your mission the way you plan. So I think this is very important mechanism, a resilient one. maybe in the same basket with the lump sums, which enable you to move funds a little bit more free. But yeah, these organizational grants, I think they're very useful mechanism to be resilient to any kind of crisis, regardless of being health crisis or Trump crisis or whatever.
Thank you a lot. I think you are the two of you already got basically with this your final remarks summed up what you've been talking and what others have been talking as well. So Slađana, yes.
Yes, we have. I just wanted to read a comment of Mirjana. She thinks that Marija had good points. On top of this, for NGOs serving vulnerable populations, the decline of social welfare services and systems increases significantly difficulties for vulnerable clients. So that's like fortifying the point on that.
Thank you, Vera.
Thank you. Sorry, if I can make a comment on that. On organizational or institutional grants, I'm a bit critical towards this model, or at least it can only be, in my view, applied with quite strong guarantees. Basically, Tina said most of them, like that the organization has a certain track record in terms of professional work and financial capabilities and administrative experience, etc., and strategy. So it's not like organizational grant is not just like for whatever you want to do or whatever you want to do, but still with results, with bringing forward your case and with achieving change. So it's not a carte blanche, let's say. It does have conditions and it does have criteria. I just thought it was important to add. And as regards the comment on service providing organizations, yes, I totally see that in all contexts in Hungary too, the state social institutional system is collapsing, is defunded, etc. Excuse me. So it's civil society organizations that step in, which is great and it's very good, but it's not sustainable. There are no international donors that can sustain the missing social structures and services in a country. So together with providing social services, advocacy is absolutely essential, even when it's not hopeful, even when it's long-term, but eventually it's going to be your state that you are paying for your taxes to that must pay for the services.
I personally agree on this as much as possible. Actually, completely. This is actually a completely another topic to discuss, where it basically ends in big state, small state discussion. I'm maybe oversimplifying it. For the end, to bring this to the end, Jennifer, any final remarks on what you've heard and said so far?
I think it's been a really useful and interesting and well-timed discussion. And when we first received the information, we didn't know quite what the next steps were going to be happening in America. And of course, we still don't know now. But I think it's clear to us all it's going to be a challenging few years for lots of reasons. And we haven't even touched on other challenges like kind of climate crisis and things like that. So I think it's going to be even more important for all of us working in the sector to communicate, as we kept coming back to today, to build up this trust on both sides through honest communication, flexibility, this looking at how we can keep offering and even improve non-financial support through being very flexible and responsive, and working together to build collaborations, coalition building is going to be really important for all of us. So thanks for the opportunity to discuss these issues. They're certainly going to be useful for us.
Thank you. Thank you. I will be honest, I went into this talk a little bit anxious on how it will go, if we might start to fight with each other. But in the end, I think that we all realize that we're basically on the same side. Short-term wise, and it's about communication. Short-term wise in everyday work, in everyday communication amongst each other, but also long-term wise. Let's see how can we, through different networks, and within this network of CERV programs and EA grants and others as well, advocate together towards donors to all of the goals that we've mentioned here. I think we've already done quite a big part of that advocacy. We see it in the changes of the grant making models of the European Union specifically. Of course, it can get better. So let's work together towards that goal. So that's on this topic. Just last words. On February 20th, we are organizing the next Transborder discussion, and it will be on the topic on human rights in protection of newcomers, meaning migrants, refugees, and asylum seekers in Europe. We see again where the world politically and socially is going to. I think we're having new challenges that we didn't have 5, 10, 15 years ago. Some of the challenges that we had back then, we're still having. So I think it will be also another fruitful and interesting discussion. So you can register as you registered for this one. You'll get the invitation as well. So feel free to join. Vera, did you? Oh, I thought it was your finger. You wanted to say something.
No, sorry.
No. Okay, so that's it for today. Have a nice day, even nicer weekend. Have some rest, and then next week we'll probably communicate with each other again on different parts in our professional and private lives. Thank you very much for joining, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you
for hosting, Ivan. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Slađo, Anja, ostanite. Brenda. Ja neke izbacujem ručno.